Okay, so today we're doing the separation of a mixture lab. So at our lab station, we've got our hot plate, 2 pieces of scratch paper, sand, salt, crucible tongs, filter paper, an evaporating dish with a filtration apparatus set up, a test tube rack, and a test tube. The first step says to scoop a pea-sized amount of salt onto a piece of scratch paper and a pea-sized amount of sand onto another piece of scratch paper. Record observations about each in your data table on the back. So on my scrap piece of paper, I'm going to take 1 little scoop of sand. And then on my other piece of scrap paper, I'm going to get 1 little scoop of my salt. So go ahead and make your observations of your salt. You can pause the video here if you need to. And then after that, do your observations of the sand. So go ahead and pause the video and record your observations about both of these. Gently combine the sand and salt into a mixture. Record observations about the mixture in your data table and completely answer all 4 parts in that section. So I'm going to come over here, and on top of my sand, on top of my salt, I'm going to add my sand, and I'm just going to mix the 2 around very carefully. You can tell it's a little hard to see where the sand ends and the salt begins now that I've mixed them. So go ahead and pause the video here and answer the 4 questions, the 4 parts of the question on the back. Then it says to gently pour the mixture into a clean test tube. So I've got my clean test tube. I'm going to make a little pour spout here. Okay, so I'm going to pour this very carefully into my test tube. So now I have something that looks like this. Just a little bit of schmutz in the bottom of my test tube. Okay? Then it says to carefully add enough water to fill the test tube about half full. Place your thumb over the test tube mouth and shake vigorously. Make observations about the mixture in your data table and completely answer all 3 parts in that section. So I'm going to come over here to my sink. And I'm going to carefully add to right about there, so it's about half full. Then I'm going to cover the mouth of my test tube, and I'm going to shake it a little bit. Okay, so now you're going to need to do some observations and answer the questions on part 3. Let me get this in focus for you. There we go. So go ahead and record your observations and then answer the questions. I want to pause the video. Okay, it says to prepare the funnel and filter paper to filter into an evaporating dish. So I'm going to set my test tube in here for a minute, and I'm going to grab my filter paper. To prep my filter paper, I'm going to fold it in half, and then in half again. This creates a sort of semicircular triangle. Now when I open this, I want to make sure that I open so that I have a cup and there's no slit. So if I were to open the middle part, there'd be a hole in it, so I'm going to open it here so that it makes a nice cup. Then I'm going to place this very carefully in my in my funnel. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of water and get it wet so that it sticks to the funnel. That way it's not bopping around while I try to pour my mixture through. All right, then it says, let's go back to our instructions. Reshake the test tube with the mixture and pour it into the funnel with the filter paper in place, being sure to catch the filtrate in the evaporating dish. If some residue remains in the test tube, you may wash it out with a little water. Then thoroughly clean the test tube and leave it to dry. All right, so I'm going to take my test tube. I'm going to shake again. And then very quickly, I'm going to pour this into my filter paper. Now you'll notice I still have quite a bit of my schmutz in there. So I'm going to get a little bit more water in here. But not a lot, because the more water we have, the longer it's going to take to evaporate. I'm going to try to get it all out this time. There we go. This time I really did get most of it. So I'm going to wash out my test tube.